Prior to the meeting in Riyadh between Rubio and Yermak, the presidential advisor to the president of Ukraine, Europe was talking about humbling Russia on the battlefield, that there could be no ceasefire, that this war could only end with a Russian military defeat, and Europe was going to be the one to ensure that defeat occurred. That was the European posture. Then Marco Rubio comes out with Mike Waltz, and they talk about, we've agreed to a 30-day ceasefire. And there are certain conditions that the Ukrainians laid out, but it's a 30-day ceasefire, and the ball is in Russia's court. Those are very important words. Why? Because immediately out of every capital in Europe came a following statement, almost word for word. We love the idea of a ceasefire. Wait a minute. Didn't you just say that there can't be a ceasefire? Russia must be humbled militarily, defeated. But now Europe's saying, we love a ceasefire. It's the greatest thing. And the ball is now in Russia's court. They said it. Everybody said the same thing over and over again, which means that this was scripted. What the United States did is trap Europe. That's what happened in Riyadh. It's not about trapping the Russians. Everybody, oh, look, we outflanked the Russians. You never outflanked the Russians. How do you outflank somebody named Sergei Lavrov that's been around forever, who's been doing this forever? Vladimir Putin, who's been the leader of Russia for a quarter of a century. These Russians are better prepared. They know more. They know about themselves. They know about the world. They know about everybody. This is not their first rodeo. This is not their fifth rodeo. This is not their 1,000th rodeo. They invented the frickin' rodeo.
They thought they had outmaneuvered Russia. They believed they had set the perfect trap. But the reality? It wasn't Russia that was cornered. It was Europe. A complete reversal, a stunning shift in rhetoric, all orchestrated in a single meeting. What just happened? Scott Ritter paints a picture of a geopolitical game where Europe, once resolute in demanding Russia's military defeat, suddenly embraced the idea of a ceasefire, almost as if in command. The shift wasn't organic. It was coordinated, scripted. According to Ritter, the United States didn't outflank Russia. It outflanked its own allies, forcing Europe into a position where they had no choice but to follow Washington's lead. If true, this would mean the entire Western narrative on the war just took a dramatic and calculated turn. As we shift from analyzing Scott Ritter's perspective, a new reality is unfolding on the battlefield, one that is rapidly accelerating towards a decisive confrontation. The tides of war are shifting once more, and both Russian and Ukrainian forces are preparing for what could be a defining moment in this conflict. The so-called ceasefire has shattered like brittle glass, replaced by the ominous thunder of artillery and the relentless movement of troops. What is happening now is not just another skirmish or a localized offensive. It is the prelude to something much greater. The stakes have never been higher, and every move on the battlefield is being meticulously calculated to shape the outcome of this war. The battlefield is primed for eruption. The fragile balance that once held the front lines in a tense standoff has been irreversibly shattered. For weeks, military analysts have speculated that both Russia and Ukraine were preparing for a major escalation. But now, the final pieces have fallen into place. The war drums are pounding, the Russians are advancing, and the Ukrainians are bracing for impact. Russia has a history of aligning its military offensives with symbolic dates, and Victory Day on May 9th has always been a focal point. The Kremlin has consistently sought to stage military triumphs to coincide with this momentous occasion, using it as a propaganda tool to rally domestic support. In 2022, it was Mariupol. In 2023, it was Bakhmut. In 2024, it was the relentless drive through Avdiivka and surrounding settlements. Now, in 2025, Putin is once again orchestrating an offensive designed to deliver a decisive battlefield success before Victory Day. This isn't just about territorial gains. It's about optics. It's about demonstrating dominance to the Russian people, proving to allies that Moscow still has the momentum, and sending a chilling message to Ukraine and the West that Russia remains an unrelenting force. To achieve this, the Russian High Command is preparing a short, brutal offensive, one designed to yield maximum results within a month. This will not be the sweeping, grandiose campaigns of 2022, but a calculated, high-intensity push aimed at securing key positions before May 9th. The arrival of General Valery Gerasimov in the combat zone is the clearest signal yet that the offensive is imminent. As Russia's chief of the general staff, his presence on the front lines is not ceremonial, it is strategic. He is not there to observe, he is there to give the final orders. These orders will determine the trajectory of the next phase of the war. Gerasimov's focus is on the center group of forces, which is currently positioned in some of the most crucial battlegrounds, Toretsk, Pokrovsk, and the surrounding regions. His visit was not just to inspect frontline positions, but to issue direct instructions on the next steps. This suggests that all preparations are complete, reserves are in position, logistics have been reinforced, and the green light has been given. The Russian machine is ready to move. The key battlegrounds where the storm will break. First, Zaporizhzhia front, the push for Orikhiv. One of the most likely directions for the upcoming Russian offensive is the Zaporizhzhia sector, particularly towards the strategic city of Orikhiv. In recent weeks, Russian forces have made significant gains, securing several key transport routes and logistical lines. By pushing deeper into Zaporizhzhia, Russia would not only threaten Ukraine's defensive integrity, but also position itself closer to disrupting key supply lines that run to the south. If Orikhiv falls, it would be a catastrophic setback for Ukraine, opening the floodgates for further Russian advances. Ukrainian troops stationed in the region have been reinforcing defensive positions, but Russian forces have already seized crucial tactical high ground. The battle here is not just about territory, it's about control of the entire southern corridor. 2. The Toretsk-Pokrovsk axis, the battle for the Donbass. Another key front is the ongoing battle in the Toretsk-Pokrovsk sector. Russian forces have been relentlessly probing Ukrainian defenses, and new reports indicate that heavy mechanized units are assembling in this area. Gerasimov's visit to this front strongly suggests that it will be one of the focal points of the offensive. Here, Russian forces are looking to achieve multiple objectives. First, by capturing Pokrovsk, they would deal a major psychological blow to Ukrainian morale, as it serves as a logistical hub for operations in the region. Second, a successful advance would cut off vital Ukrainian resupply routes, forcing defensive units to retreat or risk encirclement. The situation is dire. Ukrainian troops stationed in the sector are bracing for impact, but with Russia amassing heavy artillery, drone reconnaissance, and mechanized infantry, the balance of power is tilting in Moscow's favor. 3. Chasiv Yar, the encirclement strategy. Perhaps the most concerning development is the Russian push towards Chasiv Yar. This town has long been a defensive stronghold for Ukraine, serving as a critical gateway to the greater Donetsk region. If Chasiv Yar falls, it would pave the way for Russian forces to press further westward, potentially threatening even deeper positions within Ukrainian-held territory. In recent days, Russian forces have reached the outskirts of the city, engaging in intense urban combat. The noose is tightening, and Ukrainian defenders inside the town are facing the grim reality of a possible encirclement. If Russian forces succeed in cutting off retreat routes, the defenders of Chasiv Yar will be trapped in a deadly cauldron, forced to either fight to the last man or attempt a perilous breakout. Ukraine now faces a critical decision. Do they commit reserves to these flashpoints in an attempt to halt the Russian advance? Or do they focus on striking Russian supply lines and command centers to disrupt the offensive before it gains full momentum? Ukrainian intelligence has been closely monitoring Russian movements, and there is speculation that a preemptive counteroffensive could be launched to blunt Moscow's attack. However, Ukraine's ability to mount such an operation will depend on several factors: the availability of Western-supplied weapons, ammunition stockpiles, and the overall state of its frontline forces. The Ukrainian command knows that this battle will shape the coming months. A successful defense could shift momentum back in Kyiv's favor, while a failure to repel the Russian advance could allow Moscow to dictate the next phase of the war. As the night of March 21st gives way to March 22nd, the war enters a new, perilous chapter. Reports are already emerging of increased Russian drone activity, artillery barrages targeting Ukrainian defensive positions, and movement of mechanized units along the key front lines. The final countdown has begun. For the soldiers on both sides, there is no turning back. The fragile ceasefire has been obliterated. The storm is coming, and by the time the sun rises over the battlefield, the shape of this war will have changed forever.